Pace is dropped from a hotel room in Dalton, Georgia. Welcome to Wall Pass Wednesday here on STH. Sorry about 9:06. I was trying to figure out why I couldn't hear anything. And so hopefully I got the situation figured out. Morning, everybody. And it's John here, you there. It's Wall Pass Wednesday, so that means that everything is on the table. And 9:15 after opening kickoff, our buddy Tyler Pilgrim from Scarves and Spikes is going to join us, and we'll go through Atlanta United now that we've had a couple of days to kind of digest everything, and we'll discuss what's on Tyler's mind and see if we can catch up with the busiest man in soccer, Dylan Butler, at 10 o'clock, and get ready with what's on Dylan's mind over the opening weekend of Major League Soccer season and the meetings that happened in Miami with all the influential owners, and we can get into that. And once again, we can try and fix the world's problems when it comes to Major League Soccer. Morning, Brandon. Morning, Alex. Morning, Pars. And great to catch up with each and every one of you on a daily basis. So once again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of news and notes and things like that. And so we'll go through all of those kinds of things as we go. Like I said, Tyler Pilgrim coming up in less than 10 minutes. And we'll go through his thoughts on Atlanta United, your thoughts on anything on the table this morning. Could be Atlanta United, could be hangover stuff from the weekend, and you're sitting there going, okay, I've had this on my mind, and I want to finally bring it to the table. So you can do that. And since it's a Wall Pass Wednesday, you know when Dylan comes on, we can kind of go in any direction, and we usually do. So once again, Wall Pass Wednesday, anything is on the table, and we will rock and roll right now. All right, so opening kickoff. Brought to us by, first and foremost, let me get to the opening kickoff graphic, and we'll go through the QR code and everything. All right, so opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are watching either on Twitch, the 280-character app, or on our YouTube channel. That from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You click on that QR code. You go to Kickoff Coffee. And what they do, if you use the code SoccerDownHere15, you get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. All right. I'm in a hotel room. I know, real shock. It's the cleanest that the office has ever been. No scarves, no nothing. I'm sitting at a desk, and I swear this has really unnerved me here. And the desk seems to be higher than what I'm used to sitting at. And I'm trying to figure out if I should feel weird about this, because if I'm trying to write, you want something that's kind of like below you where you can write and physically do things. This desk in this particular hotel in Dalton, Georgia, swear to God, I feel like I'm like a third grader in a college room or something. Because the desk, here's my elbow. I swear, here's my elbow right here. And for me to write something, literally, I'm like, my elbows are up here and I'm trying to write things. And it is just the highest desk I've ever had in a hotel room. Like I said, it's just the most random thing this morning. But I swear this desk is higher or this chair is lower. One of the two. I don't know. But it's just an odd feeling. Because like I said, I feel like I'm an elementary school kid and I'm sitting in a college, a college room trying to learn from an instructor or something, or like a high school or something, like an elementary school kid in a high school desk. It's just an odd feeling this morning. And I don't think I'm ever going to get over it. But anyway, like I said, that's your opening kickoff, part and parcel. All right, opening kickoff before Tyler joins us. Let me bring in Maddie Cruz on the ones and twos. And last night we were here in Dalton. First and foremost, I've got to find out if Maddie made it back home alive after what happened last night on the Tuesday night throwdown. How are you?
I'm great. I'm alive. Having a great time.
Okay. Traditionally with our Tuesday night throwdowns, we get to go to some really cool places. We get to find out about rivalries. We get to find out about what it's like in different parts of the state. And this was our first time last night to be a part of the Whitfield County Classicos. And it's now 4 schools. And our friends at WDNN TV and their Monday Night Football, they now have like their own cup tournament with Northwest Whitfield, Southeast Whitfield, Dalton, and Cahulla Creek. Last night we were here for the doubleheader for Northwest Whitfield and Dalton, and Maddie and I were on the call for the girls match. What'd you think?
It was fun. It was fun. I said it last night. It's so cool getting to go somewhere and get to see how developed soccer is, and it's just so cool. Like, the atmosphere was fun. Like, it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just so fun.
And you had about 1,000 folks at Bill Chappell Stadium in Harmon Field. And for those that know the other football, that's where the Dalton Catamounts play. And it's just to be in such a historic stadium, which has been around since at the very least 1935, and to be here in Dalton and to experience that last night. The girls match was fun. The boys match was insane. And I don't think I'm overselling that by saying that the boys match, which ended up as a 2-2 draw, was insane. What was it like for you on the field after, without divulging anything from Soccer's in Session when that comes online later this week? What was it like on the field after the match?
Oh, it was so fun. I mean, obviously got to talk to Northwest Whitfield after that match, and that was pretty cool getting to talk to him because both the girls won, and then obviously Northwest Whitfield tied against Dalton. So Gutierrez, he was a great person to talk to. He gave us information about, how he thought about the girls match, and obviously leading into conference play. It's going to be huge. And, talk to Matt Chavez after the match as well. And, it's, room for improvement. It's the thing where he said something that I really liked, which is very true in all soccer elements, is some teams, when you tie, one team, it feels like a win sometimes, and the other team feels like a loss. And he told me, he was like, I feel like in this tie, we definitely were the team that lost. And, told me that there's room for improvement, and it can only get better from here. So, make sure you tune into Soccer in Succession to get the whole thing for that, though. So
yeah, it was for the boys. It was a bit of a surprising 1-0 lead for Northwest Whitfield heading into the half. Dalton scores twice to make it 2-1, and then with a handful of minutes to go, you got a very, very late score from Northwest Whitfield, and it ends up as a 2-2 draw. And that draw got Northwest Whitfield's record in their career series to 1-13-1 against Dalton. So, I mean, it's it probably is the hotel Wi-Fi, Abby, no question. So do not be surprised with the hotel Wi-Fi and how completely and totally freezing it is. So do not be surprised by anything that happens here in the hotel. I should have gone over to the hotspot and then done it that way, and I wouldn't have to be concerned about freezing up this morning. But anyway, 2-2 draw for our friends with Northwest Whitfield and for Dalton. That was the Tuesday night throwdown brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. And Kaiser Permanente, great sponsor for us, Subaru of Gwinnett and Alliance Nurse Corp, and our friends at U.S. Soccer with the She Believes Cup. So very, very cool stuff last night. Friday, we are going to be at Peachtree Ridge for North Gwinnett and Peachtree Ridge, and we'll be there for that once again, 5:30 and 7:30 on Friday night for the SDH Friday game of the week. All right, so it's 9:15 and wasting no time. Now, I'm trying to find out now, once again, this could be, and we're dealing with Wi-Fi here, so anything is possible. And we're going to see what's up with Tyler. I'm going to add Tyler to the stacks and see if, because I don't see Tyler. But once again, this could be just me and my shadow here. So let's see what Tyler might look like. Tyler's a blank screen.
I see myself.
Okay.
I hope everybody can see me.
Okay.
I can see Tyler.
Okay. So then all right. So then that means that it's just the Wi-Fi here in the building. All right. So that's once again. No, not well. I mean, look, the only thing that should be concerned is me and technology, Tyler. That's how this works. So Tyler, we bring you in as always here at 9:15 on your Thursdays. And when we broke down everything we've been talking about Atlanta United over the last couple of days, and has there been anything that has been stuck in your mind about Atlanta United after you initially started talking about it? and other things pop into your head after the match. Has there been anything that trailed into your brain that has kicked back in after a couple of days after you've had some time to think about what's been going on after the first match of the year?
The world's falling and the season's a bust, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I think this game was very much a showing of what this team doesn't need to do in the first half and a showing of what they have potential to do in the second half. I mean, it was very much a tale of two halves. And I think to answer your question, the biggest thing that kind of sticks out to me is the defense actually, despite the 1-0 scoreline, actually looked really good. They looked like an improvement. Now, it's a small sample size. I get that. But Stian Gregerson, I mean, we can go back and forth about the penalty and everything, but he's the real deal when it comes to his speed that he talked about, right? And Derek Williams, I thought was aggressive. Maybe could have been a little bit better with a couple of key passes and everything. But you've got a defensive triangle, if you want to call it that, of Stian Gregerson, Derek Williams, and Bartosz Slish. And Slish, I think he took some time to grow into the game, but you don't play as good of a game in the second half if it's not for Slish. And so they three are all brand new to this team, and they just need a little bit of time to gel. So now you can look at this next 2 weeks or week and a half as an opportunity for them just to get an extended preseason. You got a tough game out of the way, probably one of your toughest of the season. And yeah, now you're set.
Maddie, first question for Tyler on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Go.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I thought that in the first half, there were some bumps in the road, but I feel like we recovered well in the second half, even though obviously we weren't able to find that goal and equalize the match. I thought we looked pretty solid, but I think going into this break and then going into the next week, but leading up to our home opener, what do you expect is going to be the change or the talk in practice to kind of help better going into that first home match?
I think if I had to pick one thing, it would be the confidence on the ball that you didn't see in that first half that you started to see. And I think having talked to Pineda since he's been here and just hearing over the years the things that he focuses on, I haven't heard him say this, so this is me assuming. But I'm making an educated guess here, but I think he would not be happy with the amount of lost duels in the first half, because that was really where things were kind of falling apart. You're trying to play out of the back, and the ball that's making it to midfield, or even making it, breaking the midfield line and making it up to Yorgos or Xande Silva or whoever, nobody was able to really trap the ball and progress it further. It was a lot of missed opportunities. And so I think he harps on duels so much and fighting and winning the second ball and everything. And so I think one of his biggest things is going to be going back to the film, looking and showing examples of, hey, had you won this duel, had you trapped the ball here and maybe made a better decision, then we're having a totally different conversation about the first half. And that's what it comes down to, right? Like this is a team game, but you break it down to individual little bits and pieces of, little duels here, fights on one side of the pitch, matchups that we look for. And they were just a lot of lost opportunities in the first half. So I think being back in front of the bins, the crowd, everybody, I think that's going to make a big difference. And I think ultimately it's going to show what this team is really about, because it's hard to do that when you're away in very hostile territory.
Well, then let me go meet you halfway here.
Okay.
How much of this, how much of this was Atlanta United trying to work through their own, their own first match issues with the triangle spine being new and trying to build out of the back? And how much of this, in your mind, is giving credit to Wilfried Nancy and their defensive game plan against Columbus, where, I'll go ahead and say it. Columbus is a pain in the ass.
Yep.
they are an absolute pain in the ass defensively. I think that if you can come up with the right matchups and formationally and everything, you can keep an eye on them offensively. But defensively, what Wilfred Nancy does with Columbus in that first 45 minutes, he made sure to pin in Atlanta United, made sure that if there was anybody that had any thought in their mind of passing the ball to Thiago Almada, the second Almada got the ball, it was 2, if not 3 guys collapsing on him and forcing a quick decision away and out and then having to rethink the whole thing. I think that in the first 45, Columbus had a game plan defensively, and it worked to the way that Wilfred Nancy wanted. Atlanta at the break came out with adjustments and found their way around. And we talked about it when we looked at the numbers back on Monday. The possession numbers basically flipped in the second 45. Atlanta United had 60% of possession, and they were finding their ways to exert their control in the second 45. And so I think that it was almost 2 separate matches that we saw, pain in the ass Columbus, and then adjusted to Columbus with Atlanta United.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at Columbus, they're very disciplined. I think that's one of the words that I always throw around when I'm talking about Columbus. They know when to press. They know when to back off. And if you were to just watch Columbus in that match, you can see them. They move as a team. They move as a unit, and they know the triggers that they look for to press. They know when to back off and invite a little bit of pressure. And they were doing it so well in the first half. And yeah, I'm sure there was a stern talking to from Pineda or whoever at the half, and they came out and Atlanta made some minor adjustments. It was nothing wholesale, I don't think, right? It was just more of a mentality change, maybe a little tweak here and there, but you got Slish more involved in helping break lines out of the back, which was missing in the first half, and a couple of other things. And you also involved your wings in a more effective way in the second half. And so, yeah, you made the changes you needed to make, and it's just unlucky, honestly, that you didn't pick up a goal out of it because you were knocking on the door.
There were a couple of opportunities there in the second 45 where a pass was, maybe had a little too much weight. The connection was maybe a half a step off. Once again, you're talking about match week number 1 and trying to get an equalizer there in Columbus. Maddie, go.
I mean, you also talked about opportunities. Let's also talk about, especially in net, the opportunities that were stopped by Guzan. I feel like it's been a huge thing going into this season in particular about who the goalkeeper is going to be. Is it going to be Cohen? Is it going to be Guzan? What's going to happen? I know it's only one match. What were your thoughts on Guzan's performance and going into the rest of the season? What do you expect how that situation is going to kind of flip, and how are we going to see maybe both of them step up?
Cohen who? Right? I just don't. He didn't really put a foot wrong. I think if I was going to pick out anything with Brad in this first match, it always comes down to his. We'll just use the word distribution. I always go back to the Instagram picture from last year.
Yes,
but his distribution it's never been that great, right? Like it's almost something we've learned to live with. But he stood on his head, right? Before the goal, there was one shot, and I forget. I think it might have been Cucho again, where Brad had to lay out entirely to make the save, and then of course he makes the penalty save, and so he didn't really do anything wrong in this match. The goal wasn't his fault. He parried it away into the space that he was supposed to parry it away into, and it just so happened that somehow Cucho Hernandez is unmarked running into the box, which is a mistake. That's not his mistake. So, I mean, I thought Brad was great. I think it's absolutely now, if it wasn't before, which I admittedly, like I said, I thought Cohen was going to start. I was wrong. It's fine. But now it's definitely Brad's job to go and lose. So I think, though, if there were any time in recent Atlanta United history to where he's going to have somebody serious vying for that position behind him, it's now with Josh Cohen. I think Cohen's really going to push him to even be better. And he's going to be waiting for the moment that Brad does make a mistake so he can get his shot. And that's what you want. Like I would much rather have that kind of serious fight and competition at a goalkeeper spot than we've had in the past couple of years. I think it'll work out well.
And you mentioned Cucho, and Cucho is one of those guys, and we know this from all the other, all the other matches that we watch, the great players find ways to get lost in traffic.
Yep.
And you kind of, when you look at somebody like, and you look at somebody like Cucho, you look at somebody like what's his face down there with Messi and friends, actually Messi, and they have a tendency just to kind of look at everything. They'll be out there on the periphery, and they'll just kind of take everything in, and they'll wait for that moment where the defense is focused on the ball and making sure they're focused on act number one, where someone like Cucho is looking at act number 2 and number 3, and he's surveying everything in 3 dimensions. He's playing, Vulcan chess or whatever, and then he ends up getting lost, ends up working his way to the back post because he's so good at doing those kinds of things. And then, once again, you get lost in traffic. He's there at the back post after the parry. And I will say this, you had 2 defenders for Atlanta United come to the back post immediately. And there was a small window for Cucho to slam that ball into the back of the net. And it ended up that Cucho hit that window and he made it in. It wasn't as easy as folks may look at it to be. It was a small window and Cucho slammed it shut. Yeah,
and it was into the, if I'm not mistaken, into the roof of the net or very close to it. I mean, it was, you had to make that shot perfect. So yeah, I can't look at that goal. Now I can look at other things during the first half and say, man, that really needed to be fixed. But you still, as a defense, you bent and really didn't break much. I mean, if you want to call having that one goal breaking, yes, because at the end of the day, you don't get a point out of the match. But I just think the signs are there of what could be, because again, this was the best attack in the league last year, and you held them to 1 goal. And yeah, Cucho, he's one of the most prolific scorers in MLS at this point, right? So he's going to make you pay if you give him an opportunity, but it wasn't for lack of trying on Atlanta's part.
Maddie, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I was sending an email. I apologize. You've turned. I was listening. I forgot my thing was muted, so I started talking, and then,
She's
it ensued when no one could hear me, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." Anyway, this matchup, I think one of the biggest things that I always got annoyed with whenever I go online and I see things about a match, especially this match, and how it's like, "Oh, we lost. It's over. Our season's dead. This is it. It's over."
I thought it was.
You know what, John? Listen, it could be. It could be. Listen, watch out. I mean, who knows? One game really dictates how an entire season's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you know?
Yeah, 3.5% of your entire match portfolio. You determine it with that, and then everything goes away.
I've personally been very fond of seasons where Atlanta lost the home opener. I mean, the away opener. It usually works out okay.
It's pretty good for us.
Yep.
I mean, when you end up with a match like this, and it was said on the air, Jason said it on the air, 2 of the top teams, if not the 2 top teams in the Eastern Conference, going at it, match week number 1, and you get this kind of a result. I think it speaks well early precincts voting about just how crazy the Eastern Conference is going to be, which we thought it was going to be going in. So I think that the madness that's going to be the Eastern Conference will not be for the faint of heart this year. Man. And we got Atlanta on the road at Columbus to give you that early sample size.
Yeah, and this, like you just said, and like we said last week, it is an absolute gauntlet in the Eastern Conference. But I think one more specific thing about this match in general is that Columbus didn't have much turnover at all going from MLS Cup to Game 1 of 2024. It's almost unheard of how little turnover they had. It's kind of wild. So you're essentially having the same starting 11 or the majority of the same. And that does a lot of things for a team when you don't have to worry about building up the chemistry in the same way you would in Atlanta's case, where you have a lot of new guys coming in, you're trying to settle in. So I can't look at this game super negative. I mean, there's definitely things that need to be fixed for sure, but you already looked better defensively than you did just about any time last year. So I'm okay with it. I really am. Now, you can't go on like a skid, right? You can't go and lose at home and then, have issues from here, but like this one's okay. It's okay. We'll be fine.
Yeah, so I hear. I mean, nothing like having a lockdown free safety like Stian Gregerson at 6'5", closing space the way that he did.
Oh my gosh, he is so good. Like, listen, I know people are probably gonna like shit on him for the penalty.
There's the explicit rating for the morning. There you go.
There it is. Sorry, y'all. I think this is the first time I'm the one who's actually broken that.
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh my gosh, first for everything. But listen, he's physical. He's huge in the back and he's fast. Yeah. I mean, if he hadn't tracked him down, that would have been 2-0.
Yep.
And I thought it was a soft penalty.
Okay, so you thought it was a soft pen.
I do.
Okay. I could see it both ways. I could see it being he was using his force to like push him over. I can see it. I also can see it as good defending.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a coin toss. And I said it watching it live. I was like, this could go either way. It really could, because you just never know what the ref is going to call, right? I will always go back to Miami 2 years ago when Brooks Lennon got absolutely rocked. And
he's a diver now because of that, by the way.
Right. Yeah, and then that gave me a lifelong irritation of Jair Marufo from that match. So I just, you never know. Like and then we throw in the refereeing with that drama and all, and you just never know what you're going to get. I actually didn't think the ref was bad in this match.
I didn't either.
I just thought this one was soft. I mean, it's a contact sport, guys. You're going to have some contact. And
wait, what?
I know, right? Like it's a shocker. But
what do you mean?
A little bit of a shoulder into somebody. I feel like Mo Farsi went down really easy. Now, I hope he's okay in terms of the injury, but I don't think that was caused by Stian. I think that was just the way he fell. But I don't know. It could have gone either way. You put yourself in kind of a rough position with it. But the fact that Stian has the speed and the agility to get back and track back and at least give your team a chance is outstanding.
Yeah, halftime with Tyler Pilgrim at ATL Pilgrim at Scarves in Spikes, the letter N, Spikes, hanging out with us here as he always does on Wall Pass Wednesdays here on SDH. And you mentioned the officiate. Well, actually, let's go back to the pen. I think you're spot on about it being 50-50, and it can be called either way because there were camera angles as you were watching it on the video side of things. There was one camera angle, I think it was the low angle, that gave you the idea that Gregerson did shoulder into him and knock him over, and you get the accentuated fall and you get the call. Then there were the other angles that weren't right there on ground level that gave you the idea of, okay, it was shoulder to shoulder, and that's why I didn't think it was if you looked at it from on high. That's why I thought it was if you were looking at it from ground level. So this is the definitive 50-50 movement for a penalty call. And I don't think that the officials that we had, the center refs, in match week 1, I think they accounted for themselves very, very well in a difficult situation. I mean, there were no calls I could think of across the league in match week 1 that involved these replacement refs where it was completely and totally off the rails and Aaron Rodgers into the back of the end zone, touchdown, no touchdown, one of those kinds of things. We didn't have that kind of a moment across the board in match week.
There is one. There is one, and it was the Miami LA Galaxy where he didn't even touch him.
That second yellow on Marquis Delgado, yes.
Yeah, that was the only one I was like.
But that should that not be more about VAR in review from on high than on center ref and our guy Chompy, who wasn't taking anything from anybody. I mean, I think if you needed to have somebody in the Messi and Friends LAG match, it was Chompy, because Chompy was ready to sit there and he wasn't taking any guff from anybody. He ain't taking nothing from no one. You want to mouth off to me? Bang, here's a card. I mean, he wasn't taking it from anybody. I give him credit. I think that was more a VAR review, video assistant, a VAR review that didn't get the second yellow pulled from Delgado more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And by that same thought process, you also look at the penalty in the Atlanta Columbus match and think, man, maybe, I mean, it was ultimately VAR that told him to go check it, right? And
yeah, it's Geiger, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it again, that could have gone either way.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I agree. Like, I think the reffing was fine. I really do. The LA Galaxy Miami thing notwithstanding, that was the only one that was like, okay, y'all got that wrong. But again, that was VAR. I didn't have an issue anywhere. I didn't see anything that just stood out to me as honestly anything as a net negative compared to what Pro brings.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm not complaining.
Yeah, and you have folks who I think from match week number 1, if they continue, we don't know how long this is going to continue. They need to get their heads out of the you-know-whats and get a deal done.
Yeah.
But I think that you might have some folks that we saw in match week 1 in the middle might be taking the place of some folks that we're used to seeing in match week 1 normally associated with center reffing. And yes, in my excitement, Alex and David, you are correct that you can't VAR a yellow. It wasn't a straight red, and even if it was a second yellow, you can't do it. So I know it's wishful thinking on my part. I'm wishing that you could have things completely and totally correct each and every time. You guys are right. I can't. You can't review those kinds of things. But when you also look at all of these things with the refs and all of this stuff, when you look at match week 1 from say 30,000 feet, and this is all the other matchups across the board, you can mention Messi and friends in LAG if you want, and any other matchup on your mind. When you have other takeaways from match week 1 in general, what sticks out in your mind?
It worked out pretty good for Atlanta. I think if you're an Atlanta fan, I mean, you had a bunch of draws. You had a bunch of really boring soccer at some points, but you didn't end up with a bunch of results that now it's way too early in the season. Let me preface all of this to be looking at scoreboards.
I thought the season was over, Tyler.
Right. It is. I'm sorry. It just cut it all now. We'll start again next year.
Yes.
But no, I mean, you had some things go your way. You also had some surprises. I was not expecting DC. What happened there?
Yeah, I was not expecting the Belgian bread loaf, Christian Benteke, to get a hat trick.
Nope, not even kind of. And then win player of the match day. So, that was a surprise. That's also, I'm curious to see if DC can do anything close to that consistently. But I think the vibes, the environments stood out to me. Like the atmospheres at the stadiums looked really good. It seemed just from, being a guy watching different matches and peeking in on them. Mm-hmm. But as far as results go, like you actually came out pretty good as an Atlanta fan. So nothing really that stood out to me that just was like, this is either really good or really bad. You made it through week 1 and now we move.
And the season is not over. Emilio, I think, is spot on when it comes to our officials. These guys look like they want to do a job. Pro looks lukewarm. They want to create a circus. Looking at you, Dickerson.
Preach it, Emilio.
I mean, Emilio's on fire this morning. Yeah, there are some guys who, I mean, seriously, if you look at CCH, Hernandez, who was in the middle for the first match in RSL, and then he had another match on the weekend. You look at Chompy, who wasn't taking any guff from anybody. I mean, you could. I'm sure that a lot of our folks that either listen on tape or part of this live could sit there and they could have a list of folks that are currently a part of the pro roster and go, oh, yep, Dickerson and, maybe, quick trigger Chris Penso. And there are a couple of others I'm sure that are on the hit list that would sit there and be like, nope, dude's better than you from match week 1. Dude's better than you than match week 1. I think that this is the interesting element in this for pro is, do they pull the trigger and keep any of these guys that they brought in and kind of scare the pants off of the guys that we're used to seeing? And it's like, hey, you're on notice now. I could call these guys who know how to call a match as opposed to the ones that we're used to seeing on a weekly basis. I think that this might be a shot across the bow for some folks.
Yeah.
I hope anyway.
Yeah, I wish they would, because, there's nothing like reminding you of job security when there's somebody gunning for your job, right? Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't see a problem with it. And I do feel like, yeah, pro has definitely gotten very comfortable to the point where like fans in stands can look up at the Halo board in the bins and see, oh, it's that ref today. Great. Like that's not good.
No.
So, I think it's a good, I think it's refreshing really, because I can go on rants about refereeing all day. I understand they have an awful job by my book. Like I wouldn't want to do that job. Now they love it and more power to them. I would never want to be a ref, especially in a tier 1, Division 1 league.
Right.
But you also have to be consistent. That's my biggest thing. Just be consistent. Whatever you're calling, I don't care if you are calling a hockey game or you're calling a basketball game, whether, just call, be consistent with your calls. That's all I care about. And pro has not done that over the years.
No, you're preaching to the choir here, Tyler. I've said that literally since, like, people always ask me, they're always like, why do you get so mad at the refs in MLS? And I'm like, well, it's not even the fact that, like, I'll look at a game and I'm like, that was refed very well.
Yeah.
But it's the consistency across all the boards. I'm like, if you're going to call something a penalty in one game, make it a penalty in the next one.
Yeah. Or
if it is the exact same one.
Game.
Exactly. And I even remember there was a game before I think Atlanta played. And there was a PK. It was like a trip up in the box and it was a PK. Same thing happened to us in the next game and it was completely waved off. It was a clear penalty though. Yeah. I think there needs to be that consistency across all the boards, even if it's in game, if it's across the whole weekend.
Good luck on that.
It's a lot of judgment calls too, which is like, it's another thing of like, hey, you see it on the thing. But I think that's been one of the biggest things. And it's the consistency of it all. It's the fact that some of the pro refs, just want to take it into their own hands and kind of try to dictate the match.
Well, and we also have the egos and the personalities that are associated with it. And you feel like that you are above the fray and all these kinds of situations. And you can tell when you're watching matches who feels that they're the ish, and then there are the ones that kind of go about it. As you mentioned, you've got the LFATs and the guys that are doing things on an international scale that basically they're like the offensive lineman. A guy like Ismail Elfath, he's got the law, he sets it up, he's got the line, he's not all that demonstrative, but he lets you know how he's feeling. And he lets you know where the line is, and he's going to lay everything out for you each and every time. And then you have folks like Dickerson who want to sit there and make themselves the center of attention. And Parzival with the question, and this is probably the $1 million question: why is it pro has such a monopoly when there are such inconsistencies? The league is at a point where this shouldn't be the case. And I mean, and Al and Dell says Dickerson was awful in championship also.
Yeah.
Alex says, so we're suggesting a diverse group of last minute replacement refs is going to give us this consistency. Let me add it.
These are the Avengers at this point, Alex.
Yeah.
The Avengers.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, with the support system that is built in, I think that these officials that we're seeing in the middle, and obviously the ARs are an entirely different discussion, but I think that where the center refs are concerned, I think that with the support system that is normally in place in Major League Soccer, with the senior officials and the guys that are familiar with the jobs and the doing it on a day in day out basis, I think that there is some promise here with some of these folks that we saw on the weekend, that if they continue to get reps, get adjusted to the speed of the match, get adjusted to all these different things, I think that there's some promise there. And I think that if these guys were in, say, USL Championship, I think that if they cut their teeth there and continued to improve, that you could see them getting more reps in MLS, either as an AR and continue to have these things kind of grow forward. I think that there is some promise here with what we're seeing with the guys that were put in the middle on the weekend. And once again, as we talked about, it's just reps because, that way you get your reps and everything is there. Yes, Emilio, the difference between Elfath and Dickerson is galactic. That is absolutely true. That is definitely what the difference is. between these two individuals. And it's not just Dickerson and Elfath, but there are others. Ismail Elfath, if you want to say that's the top of the bar, there are some others that we do talk about on a daily basis with officiating. So we got a week off. What are you doing this weekend? Are you actually going to be spending time with family and taking time off, or are you going to have season pass up and running, or what in the background? What's it going to be like for you this weekend?
Well, so I mean, soccer is the family thing, right? So we'll definitely be watching some matches, but not as, I think, in tune as normal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I mean, we'll be chilling, we'll be relaxing, we'll be taking a break like Atlanta, which is weird to say. We're week 1, right? Week 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're gonna chill. We're gonna enjoy all the other chaos from whatever happens for match day 2 or match day 3 or whatever we technically calling it now.
2.5, sure.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah, just enjoy it. Enjoy other people getting their legs taken out from under them for a little bit.
There you go. Cut the promo for me about what's going on at Scarves and Spikes.
Yeah, scarvesandspikes.com. It's up and running. We if anybody wants to see me get destroyed by Paolo Neto later, that's happening. So, yeah, we've got the articles coming out and everything else. Just Scarves, the letter N, Spikes over on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it, and then follow me at ATL Pilgrim.
What he said. So, Tyler, as always, my friend, thanks for dropping by on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Great to get your perspectives on things. And enjoy everybody else's legs getting cut out from underneath them. We'll catch up with you, obviously, as we go on every Wall Pass Wednesday and every place in between. Thanks for hanging out with us on a Wednesday, as you always do, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There you go. That's Tyler. And Tyler hangs out with us on Wednesdays. And I think I've just come to the conclusion, I don't know if there's a commonality of thread, but I think that now that when Tyler appears, that's when Maddie cusses. And so I think that this is what we're staring at now. The commonality of Tyler's on the show as a guest, Maddie cusses. And so that's what we have to keep in mind here as we go forward. Hopefully we can get, oh yeah. See, I mean, but there's nothing wrong with that. I would, if we earn the explicit rating, as long as I remember to post it as such when we post the show later on the platform, then I'm totally fine with it, because there are times when your spleen needs to be vented, and it just so happens. Del, we probably should. Del, with the question of the day, do we have a swear jar?
Oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Listen. I would owe so much money.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but I mean, I would probably end up owing more than anybody. Oh, wow. Del is opening fire, Maddie. Well, no, actually.
Whoa, Del.
We have. See, now, Pars, this is a smart play. Proceeds go to Soccer in the Streets. But, but honestly, I mean, Del, we have a storied history of cussing on the morning show. We have an absolutely storied history of cussing. So it's not just Maddie. Maddie is just the most recent example. We could even dare say that those of us who have been here at SDH have set the table. And because of our cussing, I mean, Jarrett cusses, I cuss, Bart cusses. So we have an established history of needing a swear jar. It's just that Maddie is the most recent example. And now that we have corrupted her into swearing on the morning show, then that's where we are. So, I mean, I get it, but no, it's this is a fantastic idea. Proceeds going to Soccer in the Streets. What we may do is, all right, so since it's a Wednesday, let's do this.
Okay.
Starting Monday, we will start the swear jar.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is curse all I want for the rest of the week.
Basically, yeah, if you don't want to pay for it. So when or the Marshall Islands, actually, Del, that's very cool. We could do that too. I like that. And hopefully we'll catch up with our friends from the Marshall Islands tomorrow morning before Nico Moreno joins us at 10:30. We're shooting for 10 o'clock. Lloyd Hours, the technical director, and thank you for letting me tease this in programming. Lloyd Hours, the technical director, Matt Webb, director of communications. They are in Northwest Arkansas, and they are taking a tour. They're having meetings, all these kinds of things. And so we'll catch up with Lloyd and Matt hopefully tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, then we can catch up with them and get the update on everything going on with them. Their first tour of the year, they're looking to do something expanded in October there in the Four Corners. They are in Northwest Arkansas, and they're looking to perhaps even have a friendly with another national team in Northwest Arkansas come, say, October. So once again, right there in the Four Corners, Northwest Arkansas, Oklahoma, Eastern Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, right there. That's where I would probably say 90% of the Marshallese that have been moved from the island, that's where they populated, was in the Four Corners. And so we'll catch up with them tomorrow. And once again, remember, we'll get into the swear jar comments in just a sec, but remember, this is the scarf. This is the scarf that Maddie models on a website. And she has become an international star of stage and screen and scarf modeling because of what we are trying to do to help out the Marshall Islands. That's the scarf. You can Venmo me. You can DM me. We can figure it out. It's $32. And the net proceeds go to the Marshall Islands. It's something that we're going to have and we're going to continue to do to help them out to build this program from scratch. So that's the scarf. It's $32. If you want the Abstromobile to drive it to you, it's $32. If you're here in the SDH, if you're in the SDH footprint in the Atlanta area and the Abstromobile can make it, and Abby's confident the Abstromobile can drive it to you, she will deliver it to you. If you want it shipped, I can go to the post office. It's another $5. So $32. Get you the scarf. It's a summer scarf. Maddie's modeled it. You can go to the Marshall Islands Soccer Federation website, and you can find out the history behind how we came up with each of these different elements. And right there is the scarf. And I know that a lot of you have purchased the jersey and the bucket hat from our friends at the Marshall Islands, but that's the scarf that we have as a part of our fundraisers to help out our friends at the Marshall Islands. So, yes, Maddie, the international model, is right there. And you're staring at what we're talking about with the swear jar. So let's get into the swear jar really quickly. So Tyler says, if someone else can drop the money in the jar, I'll come in like Samuel L. Jackson. Yes. So, of course, yeah, I heard that there were some blankety-blank snakes on this blankety-blank plane. Yes. But no, I will. Well, let's do it this way. Let's do, because Tom is asking the question if it includes the twitch pitch, the swear jar. The swear jar includes the twitch pitch. Let's do this. Let's do honor system. Well, if you're in the twitch pitch and you cuss and you want to put something in the swear jar, we can do honor system, and we can come up with a fund, and then we can put it in some place. And we can go to either Soccer in the Streets of the Marshall Islands, or we can split it 50-50. So you can go honor system, but I mean, I could be a real jerk about it and sit there and see, oh, somebody cussed. I'll put it in the lower third, and then that way the cussing is exposed. So traditionally, I'm not going to put cuss words in lower thirds here on the show, but if I see a cuss word and I post it, it's $1. Honor system, if it's just in the conversation. If you want to put in $1, if you cuss in the twitch pitch, it's $1 each time. You can go honor system, and we can do it a month, or you can just go ahead and pay forward, and it's like, here's $20. I've got 20 cusses that I can do. So however you guys want to do this, but if it's a cuss that shows up on the air, it's $1. Honor system if it's twitch pitch and it's just there. So there we go. So that's your and apparently the conversation has shifted on a Wall Pass Wednesday to the movie Snakes on a Plane. Not really a surprise that we would have something like this on a Wall Pass Wednesday. So getting close to the top of the hour, and last night it was the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza triple header, and the craziness that happened in match number 2. First match, Orlando was in control, and they took care of business. They moved to the Sweet 16. Second match, we'll get to it in a second. Third match, late, Houston beats all caps. Houston advances to the Sweet 16. The match in the middle was the crazy one. And Philadelphia, by the end of it all, advances 6-5 on aggregate, but it took the full 120 minutes.
Wow. I did not know that.
It was absolute bananas. And yes, Tom, it was a drunken CONCACAF ad. That is absolutely true. The game, it was all over the place. Saprissa did not back down in Chester last night, and I imagine that's why Rich is not with us this morning. commenting on things is that Rich is either probably still in bed or still trying to recover from what happened. The game ends up 5-5 tied on aggregate. Well, is it after dark? Is it CONCACAF after dark if it's the middle game? Well, I guess because, it was late and, after like 9 o'clock or something, you get into the extra 30 minutes and so on. So Philly and Saprissa 5-5 in the aggregate after 180 minutes, which meant that was the only score that could send it to the extra 30 minutes. It goes to the extra 30 minutes. Jack Elliott gets a red card 3 minutes in to the extra 30. Michael Ua scores in the following minute. So Philly is down a man, and they score to take the lead 6-5 on aggregate, 3-3 on the night. And so they hang on 6-5 in the aggregate to advance to the Sweet 16, but they will not have Damian Lowe. They will not have Jack Elliott for their round of 16 first match against Pachuca next time out. So they'll be down two of their big defenders. Yes, this is the other point that Dell makes. This was the game where it hit the post twice in the same play. Yeah, this is where in like the 117th or 118th minutes, only a couple of minutes to go, you have the player for Saprissa inside the 6. It hits the bar twice. It hits the post and
it hit it twice.
Yeah, it hit the post, then the crossbar, and then bounced out. And then the next, when it was recycled, it hits it again. So basically, two players in maybe 30 seconds hit the crossbar twice and the post once. And so, yeah, we had a Kendall Waston sighting, by the way, last night. So, yeah, Saprissa had a chance to take it to 6-all in aggregate, and take it to penalties. But with a couple of minutes to go, they couldn't quite get it done. And so you end up with all of the craziness last night in the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza. Philadelphia advances. They'll be shorthanded going into the round of 16. And so I don't think Philly was winning any fans last night. Everybody was rooting for Saprissa, and it was a unique experience. Tom will get into that in just a second. So, Maddie, you got go ahead and tease what you're up to later today, because you turn into a pumpkin in about a minute and a half.
Oh, yeah. I will be on the call on ESPN Plus for Kennesaw State versus Mercer for women's lacrosse at 4 p.m. today. So if you guys want to watch it, it's a bit different than soccer. But if you want to watch it and you want to support the Owls, hooty hoot.
Hooty hoot, yes.
Then you should watch it. And if not, have a great day.
So Maddie's gonna try and make sure that she got the cussing out of her system before she goes onto the Plus at 4:00 this afternoon. So we will catch up with you tomorrow, and it'll be a very busy second hour. And I know we're also chasing some guests. We'll just say that we're chasing guests. When we secure them, we'll tell you who they are. But we're tracking down some coaches, starting our previews for USL Championship, USL League One. And we'll have those as we get closer and closer to the beginning of the season. So have a good call this afternoon as individuals are running from one end of the pitch, one end of the field to the other, with large sticks cracking each other in the arms and the ankles.
I will have so much fun.
Yes, absolutely. So be good, Maddie. We'll catch up with you tomorrow.
Absolutely. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Maddie Cruz on the 1s and 2s, everybody. And yes, Dell, that is part of what we are chasing. And so we were chasing after the Ben Pierman interview. Tom, don't know who the announcer was. We were getting ready for Atlanta Soccer Tonight in the press box in Dalton. And so Jason was doing the show as I was watching the extra 30 minutes. And so I didn't want to have the volume up and have it kind of in the background as he's doing Atlanta Soccer Tonight on 92.9 The Game. So it was a crazy match. Yeah, and I will give it after dark status because all of the activity that was crazy happened after 9 o'clock. And so Philly advances. They're not going to have Lowe and Elliott for the next match against Pachuca. And, yeah, I mean, literally it was post crossbar, and then it was crossbar, I think. The Waston header was the crossbar, the second crossbar. So post crossbar, two separate players in about a minute's time, and Saprissa couldn't get it into the back of the net for the equalizer to make it 6-6 on aggregate, and 3-3 in the final. Philadelphia advances, and then the last chance they had to the near post was just wide too, and you could just see that. I mean, that was Saprissa's chance. It absolutely was Saprissa's chance. Tom, I do not know who the announcer was. It made it even more CONCACAF-y. Remember, if I'm not mistaken, this is done by our friends at Vista in South Florida. I don't know who the assignments are in these situations, but yes, the announcers do make them CONCACAF-y. All right, so for the first time in a couple of weeks, we get to catch up with the busiest man in soccer, bar none, Dylan Butler. And it's great to catch up with Dylan. Dylan, my friend, as always, great to have you on the show. Happy MLS 2024.
Yeah. Same to you and yours.
So it's been a bit of an interesting morning. We kind of were discussing everything going on from Matchweek number 1 and the replacement center refs, and how, frankly, some of them were better than what we currently see from our friends at Pro, and everything from 30,000 feet. But now that you are catching your breath for 15 or 20 seconds about everything Major League Soccer, and have kind of gotten the chance to take it easy and resurvey everything from 30,000 feet, what are your thoughts about Match Week 1?
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think when there's no major talking points, I mean, you can talk about Mark Delgado's second yellow, certainly, but like there wasn't, I think, this flood of issues that I think a lot of people maybe anticipated would be the case. So, yeah, I think officiating wise, it was a positive, right? On the field, yeah, I mean, a few of the things, I mean, that LAG Miami game that obviously capped it. Super impressed with LAG to start things. That certainly unfortunate to have not gotten all 3 points in that one. But they look to be like, you always look at week 1 and be like, all right, well, not that you can bank a whole season on it, of course, but
oh, come on.
You kind of, I know hot takes are fun in February, right? But you look to see who's made improvements on the field, right? LAG certainly looked at. Portland looked at, although, if you go beyond the goals and you look at all the soccer nerd stuff, you'll see that their XG wasn't very good. They just happened to, cash in on all of their opportunities. LAG's was very good. Mm-hmm. So, certainly those two impressed, I thought. And then the other storyline kind of is, it's the tale as old as time, if you will, where teams in CCC seem to certainly struggle out of the gate in MLS. So
I think it was 5 draws in 6 matches.
Yeah, nobody won, right?
I think it was like 1-0-5 in the first 6. And before you came on, we were discussing the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza After Dark that was Saprissa and Philadelphia last night.
I didn't. I wish I was. I wish I was watching that. I didn't see that, but I certainly do know, off the rails in a CONCACAF-y way.
I mean, and it was since all the activity finished after 9 o'clock, then we gave it After Dark status. When you're not going to have 2 of your defenders when you are in the round of 16. When you look at, and since you mentioned LAG and Portland, we'll start out there. I think that LAG, the LA Galaxy, I think that they spent $19 million, if my math is correct, somewhere between 19 and 21 on bringing in Joseph Paintsel and Gabriel Peck. And you got to see just how fast Joseph Paintsel is. And literally, he comes in on Wednesday, and you're ready to go on the weekend. And Paintsel is just I mean, the airplane contrails are behind him, or it's like, like you're looking at a comet and you see the tail of the comet. Somebody like Paintsel is going to cause a lot of problems in the Western Conference. Gabriel Peck, last 30 minutes, Peck ended up on the right-hand side. Paintsel shifted from the right to the left, and you've got Paintsel, Peck, and Puig, the P3, and it has nothing to do with nuts and cheese and making sure that you have all of your nutrients squared away. But I think that if they blend, if they mesh those three with the Bishop, Dejan Joveljic up top, if they don't finish top four in the Western Conference, then something's seriously up, and I think that Greg Vanney is in serious trouble.
Yeah, I think it's a fair shout. Look, last at least 2 years, we've said they needed to massively upgrade on the wings. They've done that, right? Mm-hmm. And now they've given Ricky Puig guys to play off of and to play with, and he's not on an island all to his own. So I think that was good work in the offseason by LAG, and I think it's always, I feel like they're one of those clubs, and maybe it's a market thing, or maybe it's just a prestige thing of their past or an original team, but like when they're good, and then LAFC is good too, like, it just makes it, I feel the same way about the Pacific Northwest teams. I feel like when you've got rivalry teams doing well, I think it adds to it. And obviously just LA Galaxy, and it's super intriguing to me just how the two of those teams operate and live in that same landscape. Like it's not like there's, here in New York, it's different because, I mean, look, Red Bulls are Jersey, really, right? And
yes.
And NYCFC is not. But there's also very different ethoses there, where it's Red Bulls, although they did splash cash on Forsberg, are a team that traditionally has not, at least the last decade or so, has not spent money. They've relied on homegrowns in their system. NYCFC was spending money. Now they're relying on younger South American talent, or just younger talent in general. But LAG and LAFC, I feel like they have that same ethos, right? Like they both want to spend, they both want to get the big name players. So the arms race there, I think, is pretty interesting.
Well, and to your point, I think that LAG, they were doing their thing. And it's all the glitz, all the glamour. You're bringing in Zlatan, you're bringing in Keane, you're bringing in Donovan, Stevie G.
Yeah, their own Galacticos.
Yeah, I mean, the Galacticos were there in Carson, which is right next to the Goodyear Blimp facility. So you could insert your joke here about that. But they had their speed. Anschutz Entertainment, the AEG, the owners, if they had their speed, they're going to spend the money. They're going to splash the cash. They're going to do their thing.
With no issues in market, right? Like their biggest issue was up north a little bit, and San Jose really wasn't doing that. So
unless Cosmo was threatening that Sports Center was next. Then LAFC comes into town, and LAFC is like, all right, fine. You do things your way. We're going to come in. We're going to spend money. We're going to get Carlos Vela. We're going to get all these guys. We're going to splash the cash. And then I think it turned into almost a keeping up with the Joneses kind of a deal where LAFC spends to a different level and a different dynamic. Then the pressure is there for the Galaxy to try to follow along. And that might have been LAG's downfall a little bit, is instead of trying to do their thing in their lane, they looked up at what was going on at the now BMO with LAFC, and they're like, oh, crap, they're having success. And I think that LAG felt the pressure, and that pressure ended up being a negative for them trying to catch up with LAFC instead of trying to focus on themselves. And you end up with what we've seen, where LAFC passed the Galaxy in a very short period of time, and the Galaxy are still trying to play catch up, and they finally might have done that, 3.5% of the season being complete and all.
Yeah, I mean, also their LAG's issues in their front office, right, have been well documented as well, right? So that I think takes some time, I think, to get out from under. So it appears they're doing that. Lo and behold, they have a former LAFC guy there too to do it, so that's fun. But yeah, no, I think it adds to it certainly. A good LAG team, I think, makes that West also a lot juicier, if you will. Obviously the East ruled MLS last year in a big way. Still the better conference to me, but LA improvement, maybe Portland improvement. We'll see.
No doubt. And we'll see if the Portland improvement was more just beating up on Colorado as they try to get used to Chris Armas, because that was ugly and it was ugly early, or if it was something that folks need to be concerned about with the Chris Armas hire and after week number 1 later on down the line. You mentioned the East, you mentioned New York City. So let's get into your thoughts about – you mentioned your thoughts about Red Bulls. I think Forsberg's going to be a problem. I think
they could be a problem. I think they are a, and mind you, this is what every team I think in MLS would love to have if they don't already have it. They are one DP striker away from being really, really dangerous. Like, dare I say, cup contending dangerous.
Wow. Okay.
I think. I mean, look, defensively, their DNA is there, right? And that's not changing. Their biggest issue these last couple of years has been scoring goals. They haven't had that guy. I mean, geez, they haven't had that guy since BWP was there, right? Yeah. Let's be honest. Or Brian White was there, but I mean, it was a different level with BWP. Now you've got a creator in Forsberg who will set those opportunities up. I think that was a terrific signing, one of the better ones in the offseason in the league. But now you need that guy up front. And listen, I think we've seen enough of a sample size to say Van Zier is just not that guy, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have DP, I think at least a DP spot to utilize, and that's who they've got to get. They've got to get that guy, right, up front. And then, look out for the Red Bulls, I think.
NYC, on the flip side, as they continue to build and prepare us for Dylan Butler Estates. When you look at NYC out of the blocks, I know that coming into the season, we talked about Nick Cushing and that his seat might be a little on the warm side. When you look at NYC early returns, when you're staring at what's going on with them so far.
Yeah, it wasn't very good in Charlotte, right? And it feels like it's the same issues like that have also plagued them, which is also the goal scoring output, which is remarkable to think, right? Because man, we're only a couple years removed from Tati being there and just a group that could score 3-4 goals at a clip, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, is that a case as well of the same issues creeping up, or is it, this group, and there were some signings later in the preseason. Does it just need a few more weeks to gel? That's again what makes the early season, I think, fun, right? You can get hot takes out of the gate, but I think you get a better idea after a sample size of 2 or 3 or 4 games.
Dylan Butler hanging out with us here. It's halftime with Dylan, as Dylan joins us every Wall Pass Wednesday. That he can catch his breath and come in and answer silly questions for a half an hour about Major League Soccer and about his beloved Newcastle.
Big one last night.
Yeah, that no doubt.
It didn't love having to go 120 with a team that's already out of gas, but
yes, and apparently Amanda Stavely is also having to deal with court issues and might be owing 37 million pounds in a court case, and so she's had to borrow. I think she's had to borrow like 1.2 million pounds over the last year to help with court costs in this case that she's involved in right now. We'll finish up with Premier League. We'll get into that at the end of things, considering it is a Wall Pass Wednesday. We mentioned what's going on there. Anybody else out of the blocks? Actually, let's deal with the extremes. Who surprised you, pleasantly or otherwise, in match week 1, and who concerned you more that we haven't talked about in match week 1?
I think the biggest surprise came in that Portland Colorado game. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of.
I didn't have it. No, I didn't have it.
I drank the Colorado Kool-Aid there a little bit, where, and I don't think, again, it is one match, right? But like, I feel like I thought they made significant upgrades. Now I didn't think they were done with the build, right? But the spine, at least it appeared to be better, right? Zach Steffen in goal, you would argue it certainly should be an upgrade there, and Georgi Mihailovic, an upgrade there. You bring back Sam Vines, that was very good. Omir Fernandez is familiar, certainly, obviously, with Chris Armas and playing the way that he wants to play. So, and Portland was, there were a lot of people out in Portland who were like, Neville, really? Like,
yeah.
And then you hear in the beginning, right? Oh, by the way, Evander isn't playing, and we've got like 3-4 starting 11 guys out for this match. And then for them to do what they did in really the course of 45 minutes was certainly, I would say, the most surprising element of the first week of MLS regular season. And same on the other side of things. I had higher hopes, like I just said, for the Rapids. So I think that one was the biggest one. Although I'm not overly concerned with the Rapids, but it doesn't get any easier from here on, right? They've got a tough one in week 2.
Our long international nightmare is over, by the way.
Okay.
Minnesota United finally has a head coach.
Yeah, and an interesting one there as well, right? An assistant. It's another guy. It's funny. It feels like there's been trends in MLS coaches. Like one guy will, like if one team hires, I don't know, whatever it is, right? Like, and they get success. Now that's like we've got to get our own Dutch guy, right? Like we've got like.
Oh, we like that idea. We like that idea. Let's go there.
Right. Apparently that's a breeding ground for coaches. And now we're going to England, which we've gone to a bunch, but Eric Ten Hag's assistant, youngest MLS manager, and Ramsey. I can't say I know a whole ton about him, and he'll be able to cut his teeth, I guess, right, with the Loons. So I mean, apparently the visa or the work visa took so long, yet you were in the same part of the world where you hired a manager. So
all right, so let me see if I can retrace my steps here when it comes to Minnesota United and see if I missed anything.
Yeah.
So you hire a chief soccer officer from Barnsley, Khaled El Ahmad.
Check.
And he has a work visa issue or a visa issue, one of the two, or both. And he is hired in December, I believe. And because of the work visa issue, he isn't able to show up in the United States until Minnesota United is in preseason training in Tucson, Arizona. He decides that he doesn't want to, and this is published reports out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, that he doesn't want to really interact with players until he sees them in person.
Right.
And that seems to be his way. And then you finally get him in. Yet when he was hired, he said he was cool with the substitute teacher policy. He was absolutely, like I said, and if I'm off the rails here on any of this in my progression, please correct me. So he's fine dealing with things virtually, which I imagine you can. You can sit there and Zoom with folks and Zoom with front office and get things done that way. But he's cool with the substitute teacher policy. And he was fine starting the season with an interim manager. Then what you decide to do is go to Manchester United to get a 32-year-old who, by published reports, he's an assistant coach for the Welsh national team, sought after for jobs in the EFL and the Championship. I think Blackburn was interested. Swansea was interested as a member of the Swans Trust. I'd never heard of this as a part of wanting to replace Dyer late last year. But apparently the pedigree is there. This is either going to be the battle of the extremes here for Minnesota United.
Yeah, there's no middle ground.
Literally, because I when the season started, because this was before Ramsey took over, I had them as wooden spoon. And so, of course, what do? They punch Austin in the face and beat Austin 2-1.
Speaking of wooden spoon.
Yeah, and so we can get into Austin in a second. But all of this stuff that we've seen from Minnesota United has been, if you were to look up head scratcher in Webster's, the picture would be the Loons logo. And then you come up with a 32-year-old who's your head coach, who is still awaiting his work visa to be fixed so he can come over. Initially, it was supposed to be after the Manchester Derby. For me, this is big risk, big reward for Minnesota with everything that they've done up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not a
it's not like hiring Big Sam. It's not like Big Sam sent his resume in, or Steve Bruce or Roy Hodgson or something, and sitting there going, yeah, I need an interim and I'll get this guy. I mean, this is a guy who's got a pedigree apparently, but you went 32-year-old, youngest hire in MLS history to be your guy, and you're bringing him in at some point when the work visa is squared away.
And you've got basically a sporting director now and a head coach with zero experience in a very, very complicated league in terms of its mechanics, right?
Yeah, and apparently Ramsey's system that he likes is built on youth and speed.
Well, that's certainly a 180 from what we've seen.
There are 4 players on the Minnesota United roster that are older than Eric Ramsey.
Exactly. And they've largely jettisoned their promising
they have no academy.
Correct. So maybe start there.
So there's that. I all of this stuff leading up to this has been a head scratcher for Minnesota United specifically. I mean, like, how do you not have an academy? How do you not build with youth? I don't know. That's a question probably for Adrian Heath, but we got to find him to ask him.
I mean, it's one that I've asked for years, right? Like, you would see a guy. I mean, he's been injured, unfortunately for him, but like, you see a guy like Mason Toye, right? And you're like, listen, I could see it, man. I could see this guy doing something. No, we're gonna get rid of him. We're gonna trade him away. You know, there's been other promising young players. You probably go down a list that they sign and don't develop.
Wait, wasn't Cade Cowell tied to Minnesota early in his playing?
I mean, Clark was, right? Caden Clark was.
Caden Clark, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I was thinking of Caden Clark. Okay. But yeah, so Caden Clark, that's who I was thinking of. And because of the arcane rules of Major League Soccer and territorial it's just it makes your head split open from all this stuff. But Minnesota United,
but these two guys will get it. They'll certainly they'll have no problem trying to figure out all those things.
Absolutely, and it's like, yeah. So how do we do the salary thing? Can we just sign somebody? No, you can't. No, it's like, well, I'd like to sign this guy.
We bring up someone from one of our youth. Oh, what, we don't have youth teams,
right? Yeah, it's like, so can we go to our MLS Next Pro franchise and see what we can do from the academy? You can do the first part, but not the second part. And I mean, I'm looking at this, and Dell, our resident Charleston Battery fan, about Ramsey. He just really wanted to live in Minnesota, and I guess that could apply for both Khaled El Ahmad and for Ramsey, but. I mean,
it seems like there's a really nice pub there at the end line, right? So,
and I mean, the mosquito is in fact the state bird of Minnesota, and so when you're in the heat of the schedule in the summer,
that makes sense with all the lakes they have.
Yeah, and with family up there, that's the inside joke about with Minnesotans, is that the mosquito is the state bird because of everything that goes on. But for me, all of these steps. Why release Adrian Heath with only a couple matches to go if you're not going to make the playoffs? Then you get your first substitute teacher. Then he decides he wants to go and get a gig at Indy 11. Then you're on your second substitute teacher. Then you got your chief soccer officer who is hired, and he's cool with all of this stuff going on right now. I guess he had a plan. And Fred Dalton Thompson and Hunt for Red October had one of the best lines ever. So I imagine that you've got to put Khaled El Ahmad has a plan. Then you're fine going into the season with an interim, with a caretaker manager. Then you bring in a 32-year-old who has no first team head coaching experience, but you want to have him be the new head coach in Major League Soccer. Did I miss anything?
No, they also didn't sign any more Finnish guys, I don't think.
Well, I think after the Scandinavian variant, do you remember the Scandinavian variant that they had when they first started in Major League Soccer, when they signed guys like Alvabage and all of those guys?
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't work out after that first season. And
there's probably some Finnish agent right now, like trying to hey, Coach Ramsey, it's me. I'm over here in Oslo. No, that's Norway.
Yeah, you could do blanket Scandinavian thought. I mean, that's easy.
Listen, we've had a lot of success with Minnesota. We've got a few other, guys in their 30s here if you want to bring them over.
Well, yeah, and it'd be like, yeah, and Pookie's probably like, hey, Coach, you talk to my agent. We got some guys that can help you out. Are you under the age of 25? No, well, then we can't help you. But yeah, speed and youth is what apparently Ramsey wants to do. This is going to be one of the more interesting petri dishes for the season. Minnesota United is either going to come out of this looking like an absolute genius, and all of the stuff that we're committing to tape right now is going to come back and bite us in the you-know-what, or it's going to be one of the shortest tenures and largest paychecks that have been cut for two individuals that will not be working in quite some time.
It makes for interesting fodder. That is for sure.
No doubt. And so that's what we're staring at when it comes to week, the early part of the season. When it comes to match week 2, is there anything that sticks in your brain as to what you're going to be doing with your feet kicked up and making sure that you've got everything squared away, getting ready to think about everything going on outside of the CONCACAF hemispheric extravaganza? Hey, Minnesota's hosting Columbus, lead off of the weekend. I mean, that.
Yeah, and then you got a Florida derby as well on Saturday, right, in the afternoon.
Well, and this one, and I can't wait for the reverse fixture, because it'll be at Inter & Co Stadium, where Orlando is playing Inter Miami.
Yes.
It'll be there. It'll be a stadium that'll be named after them, but not paid for by them.
Maybe they'll own it, by winning there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Houston coming off of their wins, got Red Bulls, but it's at home, so at least they don't have to.
They're also coming off Champions Cup.
Yes, knocking off all caps and sending them away.
Vancouver, we get to finally see. After they of course got knocked out of Champions Cup. I think Salt Lake. I don't know, man. Like I always like that match. I always like Salt Lake, LAFC.
Well, I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
It's the Chicho Arango sweepstakes, and so you'll get that. You'll get that return in Diego Luna, and so perhaps if you're looking at juice boxes, maybe you take the over, find what the total is, and see what's going on there at Rio Tinto. It's an early start, noon kick. for our friends at the Riot, and so you might get folks a little sleepy coming out of the blocks for that one at 2:00 on.
You got a Cali Classico later on.
Oh,
It's
boy.
always fun too.
See, San Jose. Yeah, that's definitely the one where Cosmo needs to come out with the sign as a bit of a rematch. What else is going on with you these days with MLSsoccer.com and OSDB and Varsity Media, where it is indoors for you and a lot of different things?
Yeah, busy. A busy stretch of playoff basketball happening. So this past week I had Friday, Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So 4 games in 3 days.
Wow.
And here's a fun one for you too. I know I'm in stoppage time, but
that's all right.
I go to get a haircut Sunday before my 2 games on Sunday, and it was part of a championship Sunday, so there were other games before it. And my crew get there as I'm going in to get my haircut, and they go, "Hey, we're running an hour. They're running an hour late." I'm like, "That's not a good start."
Oh.
So I made sure I popped in. I got time to get a little lunch now, I guess, right? So got some lunch. Get there. We actually got. It was an hour and a half by the time we got to. So our 4:30 game started at 6 when our 6:00 game was supposed to start, and then our 6:00 game started at 7:30. And this coming weekend, I've got 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. So,
well, all right. So as long as the coaches give you the information that you're looking for.
Yep, I've got 3 calls. I have a call at 11, 12:30, and 2.
There you go. And that's halfway through. So as always, my friend, great to catch up with you. Glad to have you back, as you are the busiest father/MLS person that we know. And glad to have you back on Wall Pass Wednesday looking at match week 1. Be safe, my friend, and we will catch up with you. May all of the calls be on time, and you not have to wait 90 minutes between games, especially during playoff weekends. Be safe, my friend.
To that.
We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, bud.
That's a Dylan. Great to have Dylan back. Nice glasses, by the way. It's well done. So Dylan sporting the spectacles this morning. I'm guessing it was probably a late night and early morning. So well done by Dylan. Yes, and the public service announcement by Dell, giving Dylan a follow on the 280-character app at Dylan_Butler. And so that is how you keep track of Dylan. All right, so let me go back and go through the comments, since I really haven't had the chance to see what you guys were talking about this morning. And we'll go through that. There is some news. Remember, Major League Soccer had the group of 12. They had the jury in South Florida to discuss things. We'll go over that. We've got the news of the day, getting you ready for everything. I mentioned the Amanda Stavely lawsuit with Newcastle. Alex, I know that you duck your head low. So, yes, David, good morning. Welcome to Office Furniture Down Here. Close. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I'm used to, like I said, I'm so used to having everything here in front of me and an oversized desk. And I don't know what to do with my elbows. Morning, Harry. Morning, Abby. And Abby spoke to a friend in Kansas City, home of the first stadium for women's team only with the current. Yes, sold out of season tickets. That's great. But apparently they're short on parking. And folks that are having to figure out how to park there in the Kansas City facility, in and around the stadium, they are not happy about the cost of parking there in Kansas City. And I mean, it is minimal parking at best. And I'm being nice about it. Mike Hendricks over at the Kansas City Star has an article up, and folks were being charged $800 to park. $800 to park there at Kansas City's new stadium. I mean, literally, and it was crazy to hear this, that for all of those matches, it's like $800 to park and be a part of the parking setup that's there in Kansas City. And there also is a deal where if you carpool, if I remember this correctly, there's a deal where if you carpool to the Kansas City Stadium and you have parking, that if you have 4 or more in your car, you get a $10 credit to concessions. So that's what's going on right now with Kansas City. But the article by Hendricks is operating under the premise that minimal parking was part of the plan. Headline: minimal parking was part of the plan in the overall. It was not something that, we don't have a whole lot of spaces to park. And so as it ends up, Hendricks is intimating that it was part of the plan all along to sit there and creating scarcity. That way you can charge what you want. And in this case, like I said, it's like $800. So Hendricks in his piece goes on, and we'll discuss it. But yeah, the biggest thing right now the biggest thing going on right now in Kansas City, yes, it's fantastic that the Current have their own facility and they don't have to play at Children's Mercy Park anymore or anything like that. But the biggest element of this is the fact that parking is a premium. Parking is at a premium, and folks are not happy about it right now. And so we'll see how that continues to evolve. Steph Yang, also at the Athletic. And by the way, the stadium looks fantastic right there on the riverfront. So Kansas City Current season ticket holders charge around $800 to park their cars at the new stadium, according to an email the club sent season ticket holders this week. So Steph continues in the email. On-site parking is going to run $50 a match plus taxes and fees in order to park at all of the 13 regular season home games plus one yet to be announced home match as a part of the intended international tournament during the Olympic break. 2024 fans would need to pay $700 before taxes and fees. Yeah, so folks were literally flashing their receipts on their social media saying, yeah, with taxes, $816.93. Receipt obtained from a fan, it was $816.93. So that's what you were looking at with the Kansas City Current. And so, of course, being in a hotel room, hang out with me for a second here. Nothing like having things misbehave completely. So, yeah, so Steph had someone actually email the receipt, and that was how they ended up getting the information on the absolute cost ineffectiveness. I don't know. So the cost ineffectiveness of what's going on in Kansas City. So, okay, now that I've got the other way of dialing up the article, provided that, I don't know, if things could behave, then I could actually, discuss and read. Okay, so here we go. $58.35 a game through SeatGeek was how it ends up. If purchased directly through the Current, the total comes to $795 or $56.78. In a different email to members, the Current did offer the $10 per car credit to use inside CPKC Stadium for those who carpooled with 4 or more. By comparison, the Kansas City Chiefs also charge $50 a game for parking, with a season pass at the same level for $370, $46.25 a game. But once again, remember, you're talking 8 home matches, 8 home games, 2 exhibition. Season tickets traditionally are for the 2 exhibition games. If you get 2 home games, then the 8 home games or 9. And Sporting Kansas City offers free parking located a little less than a mile from Children's Mercy Park, other lots closer to the stadium in the 25 to 30 range. Both ADA compliant and non-ADA parking cost $795 for the season if purchased through the club. ADA compliant season parking pass is still available. Single game pass is also available. The price of the pass is not currently available. According to ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, it's not illegal to charge for ADA compliant parking so long as you do not charge more than you would have charged individuals without disabilities. However, people with disabilities, and this is Steph Yang from The Athletic, tend to earn significantly lower median incomes from those who do not have a disability, according to the Pew Research Center. In an email to season ticket holders, the Current stated that the number of season ticket memberships exceeds the number of available parking passes, and that purchasing a pass in one of the 4 lots by the stadium would be on a first-come, first-served basis. The lack of on-site parking was always part of the club's development plans. Stadium plan only required the Current to provide 2,000 spaces, while CPKC Stadium will have a capacity of 11,500. So that's what? 5 to 1 when you're looking at it's more than 5 to 1, 5 1/4. 5 1/4 to 1 when it comes to parking. Team expected to count on additional public parking around the riverfront. And other transportation options are always what they are: walking, biking, busing, rideshare, streetcars. Groundbreaking for the planned extension scheduled for March 1st. Construction estimated by the city authorities to take about 2 years. So the extension that would have added more parking is supposed to be ready by 26, just in time for the World Extravaganza. Morning forecast. And then Steph goes into all of the different options and possible problems, because especially of how things are in the summer, if you're going to walk from one location to another, lift, costs add up over 14 home matches. Kansas City is widely known to be a car-dependent city for the vast majority of residents. Census data from 22 indicates that just 2% of the population commute to work by a method other than driving, 73% driving alone. So that's the plan with Kansas City, and folks are not happy with what's going on in Kansas City with the parking situation with the Kansas City Current. So not necessarily a surprise. And so Kansas City is now experiencing, with their new stadium, the growing pains of a new stadium without having anybody in the stadium yet. So we'll see what happens with all of that. Let's see. Abby is still trying to get folks to see if anybody needs any HP 564 ink with her new printer situation. She's got tons of ink, and it's not, and so it's stuff that she's got ink. And if you've got 564 ink, then please, Abby would probably like to get it taken off of her hands. Also, Tom, and we were discussing yesterday about how a certain league that we neither condone, endorse, or promote is right now trying to perhaps invest 9 figures in bringing a player over when the season's over, Kevin De Bruyne, to the league in the Middle East. And so Tom being Tom, always looking out for Atlanta United. I got an idea for the Almada replacement. Well, and honestly, and Jarrett made this point offline. Tom, the Almada replacement, heard the KDB dude's pretty good. Free in the summer, and he says he'd rather come to Major League Soccer than South America. Anybody know anything? I think it'd be a great pickup. But, if you wanted to, maybe if Pep could be interested in Thiago Almada, and you come up with something of a swap deal in the summer. Hey, here's Thiago. We'll take De Bruyne, and we'll call it even. Here's some sofa pizza and a couple of coins inside the couch. So I think that was, you want to make that kind of a deal? That'd be kind of a cool deal to make. I don't know. But yeah, Kevin De Bruyne to MLS. That was interesting that he said he'd rather do that than go to the Middle East, where the Middle East wants to really splash the cash on the guy. And after what happened yesterday, that you saw Erling Haaland go for 5 against Luton Town in the FA Cup. Right now, I said at the beginning of the season, I had Manchester City as my favorite to win the league. Obviously, I'm not going to change that. But now that Kevin De Bruyne is getting back and getting acclimated and back into the rhythm of things, very interesting to see how things will continue to grow for Kevin De Bruyne. Although this version of Kevin De Bruyne looks like he ate Kevin De Bruyne a couple of weeks ago. You're used to the skinny, the skinny guy with the incredible 3-dimensional brain. And Thierry Henry had some fantastic comments about Kevin De Bruyne, where he's like, he's not of this world because of how he thinks and how he looks at the match in 3 dimensions when he's out there. But yeah, this Kevin De Bruyne looks like a defensive lineman. Let him cook. If he's going to be the size he is with all the surgeries and everything and recovery, and obviously he'll lose the weight as he gets more and more game action. But yeah, this version of Kevin De Bruyne, no different. He's just larger. And so you've got a larger Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland, who said yesterday he's getting back into the rhythm of things. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Manchester City but it will be intriguing. Getting into the discussion about Atlanta United, Alex, this morning, every time one of our guys makes an underpowered backheel pass ends in a turnover, he gets 3 new gray hairs. And so you're probably not, Alex, I don't think you're the only one. Also, let's see. Emilio encouraged by Brad only giving up a goal. And Dell, now it's what you do with the next 2 after what happened with Columbus. How do you do for the next 2? And you got New England, you got the purple team. And New England, they're going to be tough. I mean, with New England, Caleb Porter, it's going to be a tough one. I think it's probably going to be a 1-goal game. I think that you can take Orlando. Once again, it's going to be another tight 1-goal game, but that's what you've got coming up the next 2 times out for match weeks 3 and 4 for the 2 matches at home for Atlanta United. And they'll be tight. Like I said, everything in the Eastern Conference, do not expect to breathe well all season long in the Eastern Conference because it is going to be a street fight. You got to get your points at home, and you got to steal some on the road. Remember, last year, we were looking at the numbers, the winning percentage, the outright win percentage, not just getting points on the road, but winning, getting full points on the road, about 2 games out of every 7. Two matches out of every 7 in Major League Soccer across the board. You had folks getting wins instead of draws. So always going to be tough on the road, going to be tougher in the Eastern Conference this year, which is going to be absolutely crazy to watch for the entire season here in Major League Soccer. David, a lot of teams like Orlando who have to feel worse about 1 point earned than Atlanta does about 0 based upon being at home and considering the opponent. Dell, New England's got 2 games before they play us. Yeah, what they've done is, with CONCACAF, you've got the midweek stuff, and I think they've got Independiente tomorrow. So they're still juggling CONCACAF plus league, and they might be a little tired, and they might be rotated out, but we'll see what Caleb Porter does. But once again, Carlos Gil. You cannot leave him alone. You can't. We were talking about officials, and Emilio goes, funny that the only sketchy game involved Miami. I mean, I could start the helicopter sounder, but it wouldn't necessarily be something that would surprise folks if you started the helicopter sounder. And Alex, when we were discussing the center refs, he goes, definition of grass being greener on the other side, guarantee you these guys are not at the same level. And we don't know what the officials were offered as a part of the deal. But legitimately, Emilio, as a part of this, I think that it goes back to the initial point that was a part of it where you had the negotiating arm of the PSRA, PRSA, I forget. I think it's PSRA. I always get the letters confused. Where the negotiators for the referees and the officials came out and said, we got a deal. They came out and said, yeah, we got a deal. We've tentatively agreed to a deal. And then you had 98% of the rank and file vote against it. And then that's where we are here right now. I would be wondering, and like I said, this is not the first time that there has been a labor dispute where negotiators for one side have said, yep, we got a deal. And then you vote on it and then you don't. This is not anything new to labor negotiations. But in this particular case, because of the recency and what we're talking about, I'm wondering about the negotiators here for the officials. What made them think that everything was cool to go public and say, yeah, we've got a deal, and then have the rank and file sit there and go, well, no, you don't. I don't know what compelled the negotiators to sit there and think before a vote, yeah, we're good. And so we'll go public and we'll say we got a deal. And then it gets voted down and you are where you are and people are yelling at each other and nothing's getting done. So, look, you got to get it done. And hopefully there's supposed to be meetings today. And get in a room, lock yourselves in a room. Somebody slide the key underneath the door, put it out in the lobby, get it done. But I think in all of this, and no, we don't know what the officials were offered because they were looking for the 90% increase. And there were some things that when you look at some of the comments made by some of the officials that we follow on a regular basis, that the math doesn't add up about the time that they say they're investing versus the time that they probably are investing, or where they get their math about the days that they work. Something in there is a little off. I want to know where the officials came up with their math about how many days they work or how many days they travel or what they do when it comes to allotments for planes and things. Some of the things didn't add up. But at the same time, I want to know about the negotiators and why they felt compelled to come to the table and sit there and say, yeah, we got a deal. You announce it to the world, and then it's like, no, you don't. What was the triggering act there that made them think that they had a deal? Like I said, get in a room, lock the door from the inside, slide the key underneath the door, get it done. So that's kind of what I was staring at as a part of all of this. Hutch, as always, autonomous AI-driven drones with global vision capabilities will be the salvation of pro. Maybe they could help out with television production too, and the cameras that are locked into following the ball, and then when the ball goes way off the screen, it has nothing to do with anything. The camera just whizzes to where the ball was, as opposed to focusing on the action on the field. That's just me. Emilio says you might be okay with less quality if it means you don't have to see the pro circus antics. I mean, we all want quality, and I think that there's a decent middle ground here. But I think that for pro, looking at some of the officials that are out there, if they see promise, I think they ought to get them more reps. Give them more reps in League One Championship and D1 soccer and those kinds of things. And with the support system, with the experienced officials like we had at VAR, I think that some of these guys have some promise. I think they do. Pars, I don't know when the monopoly started. I don't know why there isn't a rival agency that could sit there and say, okay, we're sanctioning folks too. Pars wants to know, why is it the pro has such a monopoly when there are such inconsistencies? League's at a point where it shouldn't be the case. I'm wondering, where if anybody had ever come up with another organization that would have sanctioned officials, something like that. And Pars, this happens across the board. Pars says his only critique for the center ref from the Atlanta game is that the first half was called a lot tighter than the second. And traditionally, it's the inverse. What you want to do with the official is figure out, okay, where's his baseline? And I think a lot of times when we're watching matches in Major League Soccer, you end up with kind of loose 45 minutes to start, and then the second 45 gets called tighter. And then you're wondering, okay, where was this in the first half? So it's, I guess, inverse inconsistency that we saw from the center ref in the Atlanta match, where it was first half, and I think first half you don't want to have an impression of, okay, I'm going to let things go. But there were a lot of matches where these center refs let things go. And then first half called a lot tighter than the second. Second half, you let them go, and you end up with the incidents that you end up with all over the place. So that is something to keep an eye on if we continue to have these replacement officials. Do they call things a lot tighter than let things go? And part of this even could be mental fatigue. They may not be used to doing 90 minutes with this quality of an athlete at this kind of a speed. And maybe they're just kind of like, yeah, man, I got 15 minutes to go here, and so I'll just let that go. Something to keep an eye on. I think you're right there. And Pars also mentions it's opening weekend for F1. Get to see Lewis Hamilton. Christian Horner apparently is going to be absolved of charges. That's going on right now as we speak. Let's see. And we mentioned the swear jar. I think we'll start the swear jar on Monday. I think legitimately that's what we'll do, is we will start the swear jar on Monday. And if anybody wants to go ahead and deposit into the swear jar immediately, just to kind of sit there and go, okay, all right, swear jar, I know that I'm going to do this, so here, I'll do this, then that's what you get. Alex, discussing Los Angeles Galaxy, says Gabriel Peck gave him Aruju vibes in those few minutes. Yeah, I mean, I Joseph Paintsel, for me, the same way at points where I think Paintsel and Peck never had a shot that they didn't like to take, regardless of distance or angle. And I think that might be part of the fun in watching Galaxy as well. If you want to watch MLS Next Pro, you can watch Los Dos. But I think the freedom of shooting when it comes to Paintsel and Peck and having Puig as a part of the discussion, I think is also they're going to be an interesting watch for a bunch of different reasons. Dell was rooting for Blackburn yesterday in the FA Cup. Then we got into the discussion and about Eric Ramsey and all that kind of stuff. And then we got into parking a little bit. And Abby says about the Kansas City situation, Kansas City does not have mass transit at all. Parking will be a problem at the new stadium, no doubt about it. Yeah, I know. Dell and fantasy. How do Holland and De Bruyne do so well yesterday? Why couldn't they do that in the Premier League game with fantasy? I know. I'm right there with you. Traditionally, what I will do is I will captain Holland and vice captain Foden. And I've got Ollie Watkins, and I think I've captained Watkins this week because they play Luton. So it will be very interesting. Yes, Alex says, how did KDB say it? I'd rather lose an ear than an eye. Yeah, not a ringing endorsement but hey, if he wants to come into the league, he can come into the league. I don't think we'll turn him down. We mentioned the jury of 12. Solanke, I wouldn't do that because Dell's thinking of selling Tony for Solanke. Solanke had to have a knee examined, so I wouldn't do that. He had to have a knee examined after yesterday. The jury of 12 spent their time in South Florida. I wanted to get into this to discuss roster rules, the potential for increased investment, all those kinds of things. Tenorio came out with the article yesterday at The Athletic. They met Monday and Tuesday, planned in-person gathering of the newly renamed Sporting and Competition Committee, previously known as the Product Strategy Committee. I like Sporting and Competition better. Product strategy means that sounds like you're selling cereal on aisle 6. Committee usually meets in person 3 to 4 times a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, Board of Governors, and All-Star. Committee debates how to improve the product, comprising everything from roster rules to salary budget to implementation of VAR and the rollout of Next Pro. 13 owners were in attendance. Let's see if we had the ones that we had pegged. Clark Hunt out of Dallas, Greg Kerfoot in Vancouver, Oliver Mintzlaff, managing director of Red Bull, LAFC owner Larry Berg, Seattle's Adrian Hanauer, Merritt Paulson in Portland, Sporting's Mike Illig, City Football Group CEO Ferran Soriano. So Clark Hunt makes sense. Kerfoot is interesting. And I guess what you're doing there, you get Canadian representation and budgetary representation that is not top end of the scale. Red Bull makes sense. LAFC makes sense. Sounders makes sense. Timbers makes sense. Sporting, because of their length of time in the league, makes sense. And City Football Group with Soriano, that makes sense as well. So that definitely makes sense when it comes to that particular group. Now, also, when you're looking at everything else from the article, and you're trying to figure out, okay, there were some new additions that were there in the meeting. And so in addition to those heavyweights that we traditionally would see in these situations, also added to the group, Jorge Mas, no surprise. Figured that Jorge Mas would be the one that is one of the new guys. Austin FC owner Anthony Precourt, which is interesting. Union owner Jay Sugarman, RSL Scott Crace, once again, new investment, RSL, both RSL and NWSL, and CF Montreal owner Joey Saputo. So you look at the new guys that are there in the book. Moss, Inter Miami, Messi and friends, they're going to be the spenders. Austin Anthony Precourt, interesting, financial location when it comes to where he would be in the dynamic, not afraid to spend on DPs, trying to develop young talent at the same time. Philadelphia Union owner Jay Sugarman. We've talked about the Philadelphia situation. RSL Scott Crace, new ownership, new blood attached, and then CF Montreal's Joey Saputo. I get all of those. So Craze is a part of David Blitzer's ownership group. Saputo brings experience from owning teams abroad. And from Tenorio. Committee has long been a target of ire for some of the league's technical staffs who felt the committee has not been aggressive enough in its approach to growth. Sources, however, with firsthand experience in the committee, however, pushed back on that notion, said the committee had an equilibrium between more aggressive-minded approaches and more conservative-minded, with other owners falling more in the middle. And that's what we wanted to do here in looking at that group, is sit there and say, okay, where do they fall when it comes to the spending? Philadelphia, not as much. Dallas, legacy, not as much. Building through the academies. Then you have the folks in Messi and friends who want to spend money. LAFC, Larry Bird wants to spend money. All those kinds of things. So it is an interesting mix, and they do that on purpose for sounding boards, and that's smart. Others in attendance: Don Garber, MLS execs Todd Durbin, Nelson Rodriguez, Charles Altchek from MLS Next Pro, former MLS exec Mark Abbott, two co-chairs, John Thorington and the Rapids' Patrick Smith. So Durbin said it was very, very productive. They've been researching potential roster rule changes to implement to improve the league with everything going on the next couple of years. Study conducted by Boston Consulting Group that surveyed more than 26,000 fans, presented last summer at the Board of Governors meeting in D.C. just after Messi signed. Laying out the areas that we think we should be evolving, potentially increasing investment in, and obviously if there are areas we think that aren't working, either modifying them or in some instances perhaps eliminating them. Strategic process is ongoing. Fans were disappointed when the league announced no changes to roster rules after last season. Dermott acknowledged in a normal year, the league may have evolved or not modified certain rules. That was part of the discussion, but they didn't want to corner ourselves or pigeonhole ourselves. It's not about resistance to change, more that they were broad, deep, and ambitious enough. Therefore, we're asked to go back and take a look and see if there are ways in which we can move beyond simple modifications to our rules and really take a deep look at doing things that could be far more significant to the trajectory of the league. So, we'll see. So the Gang of 12 met in South Florida, and with the differing viewpoints financially, which was smart, we'll see what happens. But we talked about it a lot. You got to have a floor, and apparently there's now published reports that the raising of the cap number was somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000. To 5.61 was the number that was initially published. Yesterday, numbers came out; it was 5.41. I don't think that does you a whole lot of good in the overall. I know that you're raising it by somewhere between what? So 500. So 8 to 14%. Yes, it's an improvement, but you're getting to the point with these all of these worldwide events coming to this hemisphere in the next couple of years. You got to figure out what you want to do. The league has been fantastic at managing and being prudent and being incremental with their growth. That has gotten them to this point. But obviously, with what happened last season with Messi and friends, it has changed the dynamic. Now you got to figure out what you want to do from here. And that's going to be the interesting part of all of this, what the rule changes are. And I know that we have our own sets of rule changes that we'd like to implement as well. Quickly, before we go, getting into, we mentioned the Stavely bankruptcy hearing over an alleged debt of £37 million. So there's that to keep an eye on if you're a follower of Newcastle with Amanda Stavely as a part of the ownership group. Australia has booked a spot in the Paris Olympics. They had a 13-0 aggregate win over Uzbekistan. They put up another big number, 13-0. They get to move on, and they get to visit everybody in Paris and try and chase after an Olympic gold medal. Guardian had an interesting idea when they were discussing the signing of Federico Redondo by Messi and friends. Graham Ruthven maintains that they are planning for life beyond Messi. Focus on young South American players has underpinned their star-driven transfer strategy. Well, because they need young folks to run. But we've asked this question too. What do you do when Messi's gone? what do you do when Messi leaves? What are you going to do for an encore? I don't know if Federico Redondo is amazing talent. I don't know if that's going to put butts in seats over the long term, but we'll see. Transfer news and what to watch, where to watch it before we get out of here and get you ready for your Wall Pass Wednesday. Obviously, the transfer news that's out there, Roberto De Zerbi is now under consideration for the Bayern Munich managerial post. Pochettino is confident he retains the backing of Chelsea owners. And Xabi Alonso also remains the primary target for Bayern. But according to Sky Germany, De Zerbi is another name under consideration, in addition to Zidane, Hansi Flick, Julian Nagelsmann. So a lot of the greatest hits, but Roberto De Zerbi being added now to the mix when it comes to the Bayern Munich job. Looking at the papers and the headlines, and remember, these are headlines, and we always avoid the 3 and the 4-letter papers just to make sure that everything is on the up and up, or at least if there is a rumor, we will say it's from the 3 or the 4-letter paper. Liverpool keen on bringing rising Porto star Alan Varela to Anfield, and Eric Ramsey made a pointed reference to his new club's strong football culture after trading Manchester United for Minnesota United. Arsenal have reported a loss of £52 million in their 22-23 accounts. A lot of that has to do with Nicola Pepe and that particular purchase. Omar Barada, the incoming chief exec at Manchester United, has already started to meet a series of club execs as he starts to see his time of gardening leave with Manchester City coming to a close. Blackburn fans temporarily paused their clash against Newcastle with a protest over club ownership. Not the first time, wouldn't be the last. Independent. Everton likely to use the argument that they should not be punished twice for the same set of accounts when they face their next Premier League charge for breaching profit and sustainability rules after seeing the case bolstered by the written reasons an appeal board gave on Monday. Daily Star, Dennis Bergkamp, Dirk Kuyt, and Ronald Koeman, all interested in joining forces to buy a team in either League One or League Two, want to make Henrik Larsson the manager. And according to the Times, the Premier League is going to hold face-to-face talks with 777 partners as a part of the final decision-making process in Everton's proposed takeover. Why they haven't done this until now, I don't know. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's ambitious plans for a Wembley of the North welcomed by local council leaders, but they warn it'll take them 15 to 20 years to redevelop the area surrounding Old Trafford. Daily Express says that Lionel Messi's chances of competing at the 24 Paris Olympics are looking slim. Daily Record, Neil Warnock fired back at those claiming he's only at Aberdeen for a holiday, saying he'd have picked somewhere warmer if that was the case. So that's your early tour of the papers on the day, what to watch, where to watch it, and how to watch it. Before we go, once again, reminder, and Abby mentions it in the timeline that she's skipping Fantasy League. Too much going on. Don't forget, you can still join the Fantasy League. Jason Wright Agency, Jason Wright with a W-A-G-E-N. Jason Wright Agency, Jason Wright with a W-A-G-E-N on the 280-character app. And it is Jason Wright with a W Agency on Facebook. You can join the league and ridicule me on a weekly basis. So, once again, join the Fantasy League, join the Fantasy League, join the Fantasy League if you can, if you've got the time to invest into it. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody in the Fantasy League. 4Card believes that Messi is never leaving. In 2026, he'll be playing only home games, and we'll still get 24/7 MLS.com coverage. That would not be a surprise. Absolutely not. Not a surprise at all. I know that the Fourth has held up the sign. So before we get out of here, what to watch, where to watch it. Tomorrow, once again, we'll get you ready for everything going on. 10 o'clock, hopefully, we'll catch up with our friends from the Marshall Islands. Busy hour number 2. Hopefully catch up with our friends from the Marshall Islands. Could be 9:30 Eastern, could be 10 Eastern. We'll find out what's going on with them and their visit to Northwest Arkansas. Lloyd Hours and Matt Webb, the technical director and director of communications, should be joining us hopefully 9:30, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. 10:30, the return of Nico Moreno, and we get to find out what he thought about the De La Vega debut and everything else going on out west. What to watch today. Women's Nations League final at 1 on CBS Sports Network, Spain and France. FS2 has Nashville and Mocha at 9:15 from Geodis. Coupe de France at 3 o'clock. ESPN Deportes, Canada, Costa Rica, the W Gold Cup at 6. And ESPN Fox Deportes simulcasting Coupe de France. 2 to NA, 7:30 tonight. Tigres and Juarez. On the Plus, Belgian Cup at 2:30. W Gold Cup at 6 and 9. Canada, Costa Rica, Paraguay, and El Salvador. FA Cup all afternoon, 2:20, 2:30, and 3 o'clock. 4 matches on the FA Cup. Fox Soccer Plus has the U20 Championship. Jamaica, Bermuda at 6. Serie B at 2:30. Golasso Network, Serie A at 2:45. And the Gold Cup on Golasso Network, the doubleheader, is there as well. Paramount Plus, Serie A doubleheader, noon and 2:45. Premiership, Livingston and Motherwell at 3. Gold Cup at 6 and 9. VIX has both matches in Champions Cup. Cincinnati and Cavalier at 7. Nashville and Mocha at 9:15. We'll see what the Nashville lineup looks like with Sam Surridge's injury. Hani Mukhtar didn't play either. Did not play on the weekend. Liga MX at 9:55. Tijuana and Monterrey. So that is what to watch, where to watch it, how to watch it, and all of that stuff. As always, thanks again for everybody for putting up with the wonky Wi-Fi here in the hotel in Dalton. Thanks once again to our friends at Dalton High School. Dalton let us hang out in the press box long after everybody was gone last night. It was great to be there for Northwest Whitfield and for Dalton last night for the doubleheader for the Tuesday night throwdown. Friday will be at Peachtree Ridge for North Gwinnett and Peachtree Ridge. 2 top 10 teams on the girls' side starting at 5:30, and a really great competitive boys match at 7:30 as well. So getting into region play and getting into all of these matchups, that will be the Friday night game of the week presented by our friends at Kaiser Permanente, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow as well. Matty Cruz on the 1s and 2s, as always. Thanks for helping us out. Mucha plata to 4Card. Mucha plata to all of you who are with us on a daily basis. There aren't as many places to pick up carpet. What I might do is stop at Buc-ee's, because I'm about 20 miles from the Buc-ee's in Calhoun as I head south back to Civilization. Might stop at the Buc-ee's and gas up there and grab some pulled pork and some pudding and some things like that on the way back into town. So we'll be back at it from Studio HD tomorrow, and hopefully the Wi-Fi won't be wonky in Studio HD, because then if it is, we're in serious trouble. So for everybody here at SDH, this will be posted later today. Bart Keeler is Soccer for US POD episode 80, where he and friends from For the Culture, the FTC UTD folks, look at all the new kit releases. That'll be up in just a bit too here in the network. So we'll have that posted, have the segments posted, the show posted on the network, on your favorite podcatchers. That'll be up in short order all afternoon. So busy day here, and we're going to head back to Atlanta and try and catch up with Civilization, but we'll be back at it again. Thanks again to everybody here in Dalton. They let us close the press box down last night at about 11:30. Kudos to them. And once again, great to catch up with our friends at the Dalton Catamounts. The tacos from Georgia Tacos were unbelievable. So for everybody here at SDH, thanks for hanging out with us. Played safe, everybody. Mucha plata, y'all. And since it's the end of the show, I get to do this. We'll be back at it again in a little less than 22 hours, and it'll be Thursday for Thursday Thoughts. Play safe, everybody. We'll see you next time.